At what age would the Levites cease to work in the tabernacle? This is the question that we seek to answer today as we continue our verse-by-verse study of the book of Numbers on Walking Through the Bible. If you have a Bible with you, you can turn to Numbers chapter 8. We're going to be reading from verses 23 to 26. If you don't have a Bible, don't worry. Just follow along with us on the screen. The version that we'll be reading from is the New King James Version. So, Numbers chapter 8, beginning of verse 23. Then the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, This is what pertains to the Levites. From 25 years old and above, one may enter to perform the service in the work of the tabernacle of meeting. At the age of 50 years, they must cease performing this work and shall work no more. They may minister with their brethren in the tabernacle of meeting to attend to needs, but they themselves shall do no work. Thus you shall do to the Levites regarding their duties. Back in Numbers 3, the Lord had said that he had selected the Levites from among Israel to do service to him in the tabernacle instead of the firstborn sons among Israel, whom he sanctified to himself after the first Passover in Exodus 13. It is not that the firstborn among Israel were no longer holy to the Lord, for they were and still needed to be redeemed, but the service to the Lord that was no longer necessary among them, for the Levites would be doing that. We've already seen the work that the Levites would perform while in the wilderness concerning the transportation of the tabernacle. But there was more work to perform that we haven't covered yet, for this chapter tells us that they worked on behalf of the children of Israel in the tabernacle, though only the house of Aaron would be priests. Before entering the service of the Lord, though, the Levites needed to be ceremonially cleansed, and they needed to offer the proper sacrifices. Thus the Levites were sprinkled with the water of purification, they shaved the hair off their body, and they washed their clothes. For the sacrifices, they collectively offered a grain sacrifice of fine flour mixed with oil, and 2 young bulls, one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering. Once all of this was done, then the Levites began their service. Coming now to verse 23, we get the age limits for the Levites in the service of the tabernacle. On the lower end, you have the starting point being 25 years of age. Now this might confuse you if you remember from Numbers 4:23, which said, From 30 years old and above, even to 50 years old, you shall number them, all who enter to perform the service, to do the work in the tabernacle of meeting. In reconciling the scripture, we always need to remember that context is key. What was under discussion in chapter 4? It was the construction and deconstruction of the tabernacle when the children of Israel moved in the wilderness. That lower age limit was set at 30. What is under discussion here in chapter 8? The general service of the Levites, which would go above and beyond the duties in chapter 4. Later on in Israel's history, we're going to see that this lower age limit will be lowered again to 20 as there was need. Why would there be an age difference between the general work of the tabernacle and this more specific work of transporting the tabernacle? Well, the first thing that comes to mind is strength. The younger you are, the less strength you have, which means that you might be unable to do the specific work required. But the second reason could have to do with experience. These specific duties of transporting the tabernacle were very important. The holy items could not be dropped. They needed to be handled with care. The tapestries for the tabernacle and its court couldn't be ripped, and had to thus be folded and managed properly. And then the skeleton of the tabernacle couldn't be broken either, or the tabernacle couldn't be erected upon the next stop of the people in the wilderness. Having this lower age limit of 25 allowed 5 years of training of those younger men before they took over in some of the more important tasks. On the other side of the spectrum, God set an upper age limit for the work of the tabernacle too. That age was 50. God does not expect the impossible. Working in the tabernacle was hard work, and by the age of 50, after possibly doing this work for 20 years, the body would not be able to handle such labor anymore. So God provided the Levites with a retirement age. However, this didn't mean that these Levites simply did nothing for the rest of their lives, that they just lounged around at home for the rest of their lives. No, they ministered in the tabernacle, attending to the needs of their brethren, but they themselves did no work. In other words, they did what they could. When it comes to the attitude of retirement today, it is not wrong to retire from our labors, even permanently. But this does not mean that we cease being a Christian or that we cease helping out the church. We do what we can, what we are able to do. We wouldn't, though, be expected to do all the heavy work that we did when we were younger. And in this, we glorify God, our Creator. So these are the instructions for the Levites concerning their work. Beginning then in chapter 9, we're going to enter a section of narrative that will take Israel away from Mount Sinai for the first time since the Exodus, but not before we see the second Passover being observed, something we'll get into, the Lord willing, in the next lesson. With that, our time is up for today. The Lord willing, we hope you'll join us for tomorrow's discussion of Numbers chapter 9, verses 1 to 5, as we continue our walk through the Bible, one verse at a time. Thank you for watching today's episode. We hope that you found it edifying and ask that you not only subscribe to our channel and podcast, but that you like and share this episode among your friends, so that the saving gospel of Jesus Christ can go out to the whole world.